How are you, Maureen? See YouTube, we have a couple of people already on. Slowly gonna wait for a few more people. How are you calling? To anybody who doesn't know, this channel revolving mostly around the simulation hypothesis. Blue Bear, Random Guy, RTA, Benzin, Natalia in Russian, just another dude who likes to fish. I doing dude who likes to fish. Tom Sapp, Matt. How are you, everybody? To all the newcomers, this channel revolving mostly around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I claim to have found I claim to have found proof that we live in a simulation. Maybe the simulation didn't want me to say that. Hey, Molly. We discuss all kinds of topics revolving around the idea, physics, philosophy, spirituality. Dan, Deb, Kat, user 2499407, Shelly. Yo, baby. All right, everybody. So, Tree Hugger Justice. I love that name. How are you, everybody? Thank you for the likes. Let's give it a few more likes just to get more people going so we can have an interesting discussion. YouTube, TikTok, welcome. I'm going to repeat it one more time before we start talking. This channel revolves mostly around the simulation hypothesis. My name is Danny, and I claim to have proof that we live in a simulation. I've been discussing this experiment for the last 2.5 years, both in online communities with scientists, different individuals. Hello, hot, sexy mess. And we discussing the adjacent topics to simulation, also big topics like physics, philosophy, spirituality, and so forth. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit more about deep philosophical ideas, which I know a lot of people love to talk about, but I wanted to explore them in terms that might apply to our day-to-day. There's a difference between thinking about philosophy in terms that is purely philosophical and theoretical, and in ways that apply to our day-to-day life. How are you, everybody? Teddy Bear. So first of all, I might pose a question to the community. What is your philosophical position? You can throw whatever you want. And by the way, you don't have to know the name of philosophical position. It can just be you can just describe it. That's also fine. How are you, Daddy Love? I see that we have some regulars. Molly, any input? I've been recently reading some Wait, what happened? I don't know. Been recently reading some Carlos Castaneda, and very interesting ideas in there. Very profound ideas that I think apply to basically everybody's life. I feel like really deep philosophies, they're universal. You having a cup of brew? Yep. Some good coffee. TT Grandma. How are you, Cal? I have no idea what the fuck is going on, so might as well enjoy it and learn what I can. I think we should name this philosophy, honestly. I think it's one of my favorites. We can call it the WTF philosophy. I'm with you there. By the way, anybody who's here, regulars and new, if you want to give it a few taps just to get a few more people going, I think today's subject will interest a lot of people. Yummy. Yeah. I mean, that would be great to just have a cup of Aya as a casual afternoon. On YouTube, Molly's saying, my philosophy, the search for truth, is found through acts of compassion. I love that. It is interesting that you framed it in terms of search for truth and you go there through acts of compassion. Because very often especially in the West, we think of truth in terms of external factors. We rarely think of truth as arrived at through certain behavior, which I love. Yeah, TT Grandma, I'm right there with you. Again, guys, if you don't mind tapping a few times so we get a few likes, just so we get more people going, so we have a lively discussion and ongoing process. Well, yeah, it's always an ongoing process. So it is interesting, this approach, because philosophy usually applies to analyzing the logic of whatever it is, right? How you doing, Val? Today's question is, what is your leading philosophy in life? And do you feel that it's actually applied to your day to day, or this is just something that you like to entertain? I don't remember who said this. I don't remember if it was somebody wise, either Confucius, or I think it was Confucius actually, probably. Checked out your YouTube. Thank you. And the idea there was that as long as you focus your life around one of three main strands, uh, you will always be led to the ultimate truth. And I don't remember what they were, but I think one of them was beauty, one of them was, I think, knowledge. So basically, there are main three or four strands that if you focus your life purely around it, I think one of them was craft, if I'm not mistaken, you'll always be led to the ultimate knowledge of everything. Thank you, Val. I appreciate it. And how are you, everybody? Again, today's question is, what is your leading philosophy in life? And do you feel that it's actually applied, or this is just entertainment? The more I learn, the less I know. Everything is in vain anyway. G Hart said on YouTube. That's really how you feel? It sounds a little kind of, you know, it sounds pretty gray. I feel like there has to be a better way to frame this, right? Do you feel that really everything is in vain? Entertainment until you step out of the box. Hey, Amber, thank you for that. You care to elaborate? Okay, the more doors. Okay, I understand. Yes, everything's been done. Oh, I so disagree with that, G Hart. Everything was done. Very far from the truth. Almost nothing was done. The space into which possibilities are unfolding is literally infinite. So almost nothing that can be done. Uh, Nothing from what can be done is almost nothing is done. Meditation by Marcus Aurelius has helped me in life. So it's Stoicism, right? Yeah, that is definitely one that I subscribe to. And it actually took me some doing to be able to dial myself into that, to not get too excited about things, and at the same time enjoying something when it actually comes. Jihad, what do you mean by everything was done? You mean humanity? Even when you look at humanity, clearly nothing was almost done, right? And it is exciting. Do you feel that maybe this position is coming from some kind of an exhaustion? Like you feel like you're just waiting for the thing to end, essentially? I'm actually asking. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Nothing new under the sun. Yeah, I had my mom's late husband used to say that. We always disagreed very strongly on this point because I see every day like it's something, completely brand new, and for him everything was kind of like, everything is just repetition of itself. I feel that we're innovating all the time. It might be in small increments, but it's definitely innovating. Honestly, I believe we're just repeating. How can you say that when you live in a time in which clearly 10 years ago there are things that exist today that you couldn't even fathom 10 years ago? Everything is done equal. This is reality is a replay. What would be the point of it then? Even in terms of the simulation, you still need a point to the simulation, right? So even if it's repeating itself, it needs some kind of a goal. If you run a simulation on a computer because you're trying to simulate the function of certain galaxies, let's say, you might run the same simulation over and over again, but the point of it is that it might do something different than before. He just stopped learning. We'll play with different versions. Right, so that means that something new can come, right? But it's nothing new. Computers? Well, many things. 10 years ago, well, maybe, okay, 20 years ago, you couldn't imagine that we can have this conversation in this way. You wouldn't imagine that YouTube would be a thing, right? You wouldn't imagine that smartphones would be a thing. Seems to test us, but I agree, seems to test us, but though, wait, what? Oh, thought of reality may be totally unfathomable. You mean of ultimate reality? Might be. I've watched my favorite movie many times. I see. So you're saying that you think it's just entertainment. Something tells me that at a certain point, if you know you can create infinite content, you're not going to watch the same thing. What if what if the point of the simulation is nothing more than an experiment? Well, I think ultimately all of it is an experiment. What do you think? Wait, what do you think I'm new? Hello, Tinyl. Not sure what you mean by that. Replay may be possible, but isn't reality the thought that we think created? What do you mean by that, Amber? The thoughts that we think create. You mean that thoughts create reality? Is that what you mean? How you doing, Detroit Sugar? I don't know. People say that, but I think it's up for debate. Amber, I think thoughts can steer through possibilities, but it definitely doesn't create ultimate reality. We can change our reality at any moment by choosing a different thought and acting upon it. Sure, but there's a lot of things that are not as malleable as what you mean, right? You can't walk through a wall, for example. Life is what you make it good for bad, or you create your reality. But at the end of the day, I think it's just about the simple. I'm assuming you wanted to say things. For some people live for the big things, right? Some people live for like really crazy actions like squirrel suit skydiving and things like that. Would you still categorize this as the simple things? Thought creating reality seems like evolution. We can change a little. We can change our reality. Is this in this dimension? Walls are just matter as well. Wait, okay. Yeah, but it's there, right? So the matter is there. Or even if you want to say it's mind made, it's still there as something that you can't actually just change by thinking about it. And if you're trying to construct an image of ultimate reality, you have to take that into account, I think. No? Real question. I always try to take the middle ground. I always try to see if we can incorporate spiritual elements, but also maintain, you know, some faithfulness to the scientific method. I'm gonna listen. No, I mean, I see your text. I just not sure. Like, I'm not sure on what level you're trying to describe it, Jihad, because if you mean metaphorically or you mean like generally, so like specifically what you said is just on the surface of it wrong, right? Because we have new things every year. But maybe what you mean is that there's some kind of a deeper function that isn't changing, and all these things on the surface, they're just kind of iteration of the same thing. If that's what you mean, I think that even there, our perception of reality is always evolving. I don't think anyone knows any all beings. Might as well love because that's all good. Yeah, I agree with that. If you're here, why not have the best time and try and make sure that others also have the best time? I'm very down with that. Wait, what is this? And I think that ultimately, as much as we have certain drives, right? Certain people want to know, certain people want to connect. I think ultimately it does come down to how you feel every moment. So if your philosophy makes you feel like everything is, pointless, and that thought gives you some solace, then okay. But if that makes you, let's say, depressed, existentially depressed, then I think we should change philosophies. Perception can be false. Yes, perception can be false in relation to something that is already going on. But perception is also participating in giving rise to the next moment to some degree. So, like, what you decide the thing is will determine how you feel, which will determine what you do next. So, it's almost like the ultimate catch 22, right? Have you met a higher being with molecule that gave you knowledge around what's going on? I meet beings all the time in that space, yes. And as for giving me knowledge around what's going on, they give you basically the ability, they give you the option to understand. So they present certain things to you, and then if you can understand them, then they kind of nod at you. They go, okay, yes. This is how I claim to know that we're in a simulation, aside from the laser. And to the degree that I could discern what they were showing me, it is a type of an experiment, basically designed to figure out why everything exists. Does that make sense? So by doing that, you basically observe what beings are doing in every space, and you're trying to figure out, is there a common denominator between all the stories and all the versions, no matter what your environment is. So, for example, nihilists believe that nothing matters. I think it's more to your point, Jihad. It feels like what you were saying is a little bit nihilistic. But that's a truth claim as well. So this insistence that there is no meaning to anything, clearly you don't have a way to know that, right? Which means that you just assume that. It has the same weight as assuming that there is meaning to it. Everything being in vain has brought up why, as you said. That's a big question. Everything here is a choice. The choices seem to be a test, if that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with that. So but that would imply that somebody set up the test, which means it's not all for nothing, right? Nothing is created. Not exactly. That's my point. Then clearly it's not for nothing. They're trying to figure out why things exist or you. Extremely interesting, by the way. Why things exist, yeah. Thank you for letting me know that it's interesting. It gives me more energy to pursue this point. So, why anything exists? I think spoke about it before. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did. So basically, if you think about it, even if okay, hold on. I don't know why it's doing that. So it doesn't matter how advanced things get, even if you figure everything out that is physically and temporally possible, the container that is reality always have this one question mark that always remains. Why? 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 Why does anything exist? Because it didn't have to, right? And essentially, it seems to be this is an attempt to understand that, or to see if maybe beings converge on the attitude that essentially says there's no need to understand. Maybe that is the point, and that's kind of like two competing modalities. Have I tried my experiment with fungus? Yes, it works. It works. We call it pizza toppings here. So it works with pizza toppings. You just need more. You need like 3.5 grams of that at least. Again, send some kind of an invite. It keeps doing that. I don't know why it keeps doing that. You're welcome to come on. TikTok needs to work on that. Like every time you try to scroll, if you just press on someone's name, it just automatically sends an invite, even if you didn't click the invite thing on the right. It's really strange. Let's see. No, must be a test. Can think of anyone else. I'm open to all theories. Wait, No must be a test. Can you think of anything else? I'm open to all theories. Well, I think, well, first of all, we have to acknowledge that we always go through these seasons in life, seasons of how we choose to see things. And I almost feel like I don't know if it's predetermined, but it definitely has like a statistical probability thing where, at a certain point in your life, the impression is that nothing matters. And in other points in life, all of a sudden you see meaning in everything. And that will largely paint the kind of world that you want to you see around you. Uh, Having had both of these attitudes writing in my hard drive in my life, I can tell you that they have the exact same weight. And when you carry one, it seems like you're convinced that the other one doesn't make any sense and yours is more tangible. But really, that's not true. Like both of them make the same sense. Because if you think about it, if you really think about like the ultimate picture, right? There's the craziest thing about existence is that there is a reason for it. That is the craziest thing. And some people, they want to sound profound and they say things like, well, actually, it might not have a reason. And it's just our human futility that wants to attach a reason to it. Well, that's actually the one thing, or that's not the one thing. There's a few things that belong to the family of things that you cannot say no matter what. And this is one of them actually. The reason that you cannot say that is because what is meant by a reason, what is meant at the deepest level by the reason, is not that somebody concocted an idea, because that means that there's somebody prior to the thing and then you have to explain to somebody. That's why the idea of a initial God doesn't make sense under this question, because what is the attempt to answer why everything exists would include God, right? And if you want to say, well, God always existed or the universe always existed, you're not playing the same game. You're not interested in the answer then. You're essentially saying, let's just live our life. And that is a legitimate point, and you can take that position. But people conflate the two. They like, if you're interested in answering the question, the answer can never be something that decided to do the thing, because you have to describe the something that decided to do the thing. So one of these crazy mind fucks is that it seems that even in principle, answering that is impossible, because in order to do that, you have to be outside of reality to know the reason. But you can't by definition, because if you're outside of it, then you are part of the thing that still needs to be explained. So it is the ultimate infinite regress, or the snake that bites its own tail. But this is why I go back to my initial point, which is the craziest part about this, is that there is a reason. Somehow it happened. That's why there's a reason, right? And yet it seems to be completely unattainable. So because of this conundrum, it makes sense to me that no matter how advanced civilization get, they can never answer that question unless they come up with some kind of a very sophisticated trick. And I think that is the trick that they came up with, which is essentially, kind of how how all of calculus is based on essentially collapsing the infinite into the finite, right? And then a lot of fields in mathematics, including set theory and things like that, are basically based on this concept of taking something that on the surface of it, you seem to not be able to interact with in its totality because it's infinite. And then try and do something with it, some kind of a function that will give you some information about it. And essentially, it's the same trick. So when you run an enormous data set, the average of that data set can tell you something about that data set in the limit, about the infinite version of that data set. So if there's this infinite regress, the idea is that if you run enormous amount of simulations, even if it's that that number is enormous but not infinite, you still run a very large data set. And then you observe if there's one common denominator, no matter how much you change the environment or the parameters and all that stuff. And then the hope is that there's this central calculating machine, some kind of a super ultra mega AGI, that can take this data set and arrive at some kind of a conclusion about what is this one common denominator. And the hope is that that will give you a hint or the ultimate answer, or to be more accurate, the ultimate question, essentially. Because what are you really asking? Because that will give you the hint of what reality really is at the core. CUG Heart. Mustache, I can think of anything else. And that's essentially what I'm seeing happening. And it makes perfect sense to me. Now, is it actually the case, all the specifics? I have no idea, of course. But it sounds like the thing that actually makes the most sense if you're trying to think of like the ultimate space. The reason for existence may be the only possibility. We know there's nothing, so only infinity. That's reason. Wait, which reason feels unfulfilling? The one I just mentioned? What connects to that? Val, to your question, no, the code looks exactly the same under all ways that it works. And to Cal, reason seems unfulfilling. What? The core idea there is that what it seems to be the one common denominator is that nothing in existence can inspect its own choices, and yet everything in existence has a story about their own choices. So no matter how different the environment is, all beings seem to be constructing a narrative. In other words, an external bouncing environment that tells you why the choices were made. That's the ideas we have, but in reality, the choices are made outside of outside of our inspection. And then when you drill all the way down, it's the thing that I was talking about, where the ultimate choice is the choice of reality to be versus not to be. So, in the famous words of the architect in the end of the second Matrix, as he said, the problem seems to be choice. That it seems to be the reason for everything existing. No, nothing. Infinity only seems unfulfilling. Oh, I see. Wait. No, nothing. Infinity only seems unfulfilling. Well, nothing and infinity, they're equally unfathomable. That's the thing. They seem to be even maybe the same thing, just depending what direction you're looking at. Something that never ends and something that never exists seem to be synonymous to me. Would you not agree with that? Awesome. Let's get some likes going. Yeah, nobody can fathom true nothing, because the second you put a box on it, the box is already a something, right? The second you define the nothing, you attach a word or conceptual framework, it's already a something. A truly nothing is just truly unfathomable, and so is infinity, by the way. If we exist in 3D, somebody says on YouTube, Shannon Hawkins, how are you? Then are we bound by 3D plus 1 equal time and see with our eyes in 3D minus 1 equal, wait, why 3D minus 1? With different perspectives that change by moving around. Not quite understanding. They have a commercial, so I'll ask them right after commercial. Even the concept of nothing is something. Yep. Infinity is fathomable because all of this and the future is part of it, plus more. Yeah, but you can't fathom the actual infinity. Like, think about something that truly never ends. In your mind, you think of it as a concept and then you let it go, but you're not actually imagining infinity. You're just thinking of something. You're just thinking, okay, you're saying, okay, it never ends. Okay. But you can't imagine it. That's my point. Can't fathom the entirety of infinity. Exactly. But that is infinity. You can't conceptualize it at all. You may have addressed this already. Does the code appear on skin? Yeah. Okay. So first of all, yeah, people came back from the I don't know if it keeps playing or it just stops for you guys. But anyways, to the question of Shannon Hawkins, if it exists in 3D, Shannon, what did you mean by 3D minus 1 in 2D? Why minus 1? What's the point of the minus 1 there? Also, to your question, Tress, you may have addressed this already. Does the code appear on skin? Yes, it appears on every single thing, including your skin. Am I in the matrix where the universe is acting against me? Oh, you mean why? It's acting against me to force myself to a certain fate. So I think, well, first of all, I'm putting forth that we are in the matrix or in a simulated environment, but I don't think the environment is pushing you towards anything. It's an open-ended system, so in that regard, you're in exactly the same situation you thought you were before you thought or believed that you're in the matrix. So the laws of physics are the laws of physics, but the laws of physics are simulated, or they run on some kind of a substrate. I can see infinity exist, though. I can't do the same for nothing. Interesting. So you're saying that nothing is more unfathomable than infinity for you. Free will can still exist somewhat in the matrix. Actually, my contention is that you can't describe a world, even in principle, in which free will would make any sense. You can make sense of a story inside of the system, but it's not the freedom of the will that you think that you have. Because free will, right? It means that you have a will that can determine some action, and it can either choose left or right, and then the universe will go either left or right. The thing is that the system just unfolds, it just happens. And then you have a story about why you think the part that you played went right or left. But it's just a story. And there's no world that you can describe in which all of a sudden there's this external factor that makes the determination to make it go left or right. So I actually agree that there's something in us, there's some kind of a function that goes all the way to the core of whatever is outside of reality, so to speak, that drives these factors to go left or right, but it's outside of the scope of reality itself to be able to inspect. And that's the depth of the mystery. Are you saying free will is an illusion? Yes, definitely. 100% definitely yes. Me and you are definitely reflections. I accept that. I think we are reflections of one another, and the world outside that we see is a reflection of what we choose to see. However, I think this statement is incomplete. I think a lot is being neglected when just that is being said and left at that. Because again, you can't walk through walls. I mean, yeah, so Shannon, question. Let's see, reply. How do I reply? Wait, what? I can't reply? Let's see. Shannon, why 2 minus 1? So free will definitely is not a thing that you can actually make sense of in terms of decision making. Can you speak more on how you landed on free will illusion, equal illusion? Well, if you look closely at what it's like to be you making the decisions, I highly recommend you watch one of Sam Harris's talks about free will because he gives some really good examples in real time. He basically tells you to imagine a city, a name of a city, right? So like we can do this right now, right? Um, Imagine, think of names of 3 cities, and then let me know in the comments when you did. Doesn't matter what they are. I'm assuming you had a go at it. So if I ask you why you thought of these 3 cities, you're going to have an explanation. You're going to go back into the memory bank and you're going to start, well, it's not really a memory bank. It's going to actually a confabulation bank based on, well, no, it comes out of the complete darkness. So like it's not even based on your prior experiences. That's already a story. The truth is that you have no idea why the cities that you thought about are the ones that came to you. You have no clue. And they're equivalent exactly to me saying these cities to you, right? And the explanation you're going to have as to why you think you thought of these cities is just a story. You don't know if that's the case. The truth is that you have no clue and don't have a way to know. And everything is like that. So if I ask you, okay, would you like Coke or water, right? And then let's say you don't drink Coke, okay? And then you say, well, water, because if those are my 2 options. And I say, why? By the way, why'd you say water? You said, well, I don't drink Coke. So this is just like common thing, and it's like makes perfect sense. Why not? What you can't account for is all the little micro states that slowly led you to not drink Coke. You can't account for any of that. It's just kind of like a continuation of sequences of events that happens. But if you think that there's some kind of moment that all of a sudden you step outside of everything that is happening, and then you can say, okay, now I don't drink Coke. Okay, let's go back. Now I don't drink Coke. Okay, what was that thing that stepped outside and decided that? Was it outside of reality? And if so, how is it influencing reality? What is this? You see what I mean? So there's no way that you can just create a narrative that makes sense of a moment that is influencing reality, that is also outside of the function of everything that is happening in reality. That it cannot, it just, it cannot be logically. But what I'm telling you is that that's actually the conundrum. This conundrum goes all the way to the core of reality itself. Let's see. Yes, all methods are based on, but you can't think of a place you don't know. Yeah, that will be included. So, for example, Val, to your comments, this is something that Sam also includes in his talk, right? So then he says, okay, well, first of all, there's all the cities, the names of which you don't know, so you can't name them, right? Obviously, so you couldn't pick them. But then there's a lot of cities, the names of which you definitely know, but that just never even came to your mind. So before you picked 3 cities, you had more cities in your mind, right? And you had some competing ideas, but there's a lot of cities that you know the names of, but it never came to you in that moment. And was that your choice to not think of them? So I want you to pause there. Like, was that your choice to not think of the things you didn't think about? This is where the mind fuck begins, right? Because you're not actually doing this. It's just kind of happening. And then if somebody grabs you and say, hey, why did you do X? Then your brain goes into story mode quickly. I need to make sense of my behavior. Let me tell a story about it. And then you immediately, very quickly tell a story. I don't know if you know this, but it's a famous experiment, right? So it's called, they basically, what they did is they showed people, they showed men to women and women to men. Okay. So if you're sitting in front of me, let's say you're a woman and I'm the researcher and I have 2 pictures. I'm holding 2 pictures and I'm showing you pictures of 2 men. Okay. They're on purpose average looking. So you don't have like a big preference, right? So they're like average looking. And then I tell you, which one would you choose? Doesn't matter. Like as a partner, doesn't matter. Just who would you choose? And then you pick one, right? What the experimenters did is that they placed the cards down and they used an old magic trick called black on black, in which behind the card that I'm holding, there's another card and the backs of both of them are black. So then I essentially switch the card on you. So behind the ones that you picked, there's the opposite choice. So if you pick this guy, I'm putting him down and then I'm picking it up again and I'm giving it to you. And it's actually the other guy that I gave it to you. And then I'm telling you, okay, please explain to me why you picked that guy. And almost without a fail, like the whopping majority of people, both males and females, the first thing they do is that they start explaining why they picked this guy or this girl, but they didn't. They picked the other person. So it shows you that the brain, it's very painful for the brain. It takes a lot of like reframing to actually notice that you even made a mistake or you were wrong about why something happened. So it will do immediately come up with an explanation way before it would think to correct itself. So that's the situation we're in. You always have an explanation. You almost never track what the reason for it was, like what it really was. Either because you had no idea or because it's way too expensive and too painful to actually admit a mistake. It's also why people rarely change their minds in real time. I would say it comes from the subconscious. Yeah, but the subconscious is just a concept, right? We don't, just so you know, that we don't really know that there's such a thing as a subconscious, right? I know that it might be shocking to some people, but there is no established actual there's no, we don't know for sure such a thing exists. We know there are processes in the mind as well that are happening outside of our inspection, but that's most things. that goes all the way to the functioning of different parts of your body, all the way to where your body stops and the universe begins. But this idea that there's subconscious processes that are influencing the conscious mind, it's really saying is that there's a lot that you're not aware of that is happening prior to you having this conscious experience. And a famous experiment by Benjamin Libet, or Labate, depending on how you pronounce it, showed that if a researcher looks at your cortex on EEG while asking you to make a decision about something, and your only job is to pay attention to when you made the decision, then you press a button reliably up to a few seconds before you think you made the decision, they already know what decision you're going to make because they're looking at the screen. And the brain tells them when they made the decision, and they know what that decision is. So it's a famous experiment that basically shows that where you think you made the choice was already made, and you can't change it. So this thing that you call you, which is the only context in which free choice would make sense, it is not 100% not responsible for making that choice. Now, there is a movement in philosophy, then Dennett is one of these people, that is called compatibilism, that essentially says, well, the totality of everything that you are is what's making the choice, and in that regard, you do have free will. But I think that's a little bit cheating, because when you say free will, you mean the thing you feel you are is making the choice. And you say, I have a knee, you don't say, I'm a knee, even though it's more accurate to say, I'm like the knee is also you, but you think you have a knee. So this seems to be this distinction that we're making between the body and what we are inside the body. And obviously that's an illusion, but the thing that we mean by free will is this thing that I feel myself to be, the I, is made this choice or that choice. And what I'm saying is that under all experiments, and also under thought experiments, this idea that what you feel yourself to be as the I making the choice not only doesn't make any sense, you can't even describe a world in principle that would track logically that can make sense of this kind of a process. The process itself doesn't even make any sense. Can you explain again how the frame rate allows us to see the code? Yes, in one moment. Also, 1 second, I have a response here about dimensions that I wanted to know. Shannon says, generalization, artists paint 2D representations of 3D, one perspective at a time. I see what you're saying. But we do have a perception of 3D, right? Trying to apply a general algorithm so one can describe what's happening in hyperspace, where we can see 360 at once. So are you trying to say that there are types of qualia that we can potentially entertain? I'm trying to understand what is the point you're actually making. Thank you for the likes, guys. Appreciate it. How you doing, Oscar? Not very water-like. Water flows freely, be like water. Thank you, Bruce Lee. That's a quote from the dude on your show. Yes, I know. What are your thoughts on time being liquid and slowly forming into solid 3D reality? That's an interesting concept. Actually, I like this idea that was proposed recently by physicists, that actually space itself is a type of a liquid. But also think we may be able to train subconscious. So simulation theories. Okay, hold on. So let me go back a little bit because there's a lot of comments here. Appreciate them. Let me go back and see. Me and you are definitely reflections. We saw that a long time ago. Switching my awareness on spirit, doing positive things to help humanity prosper. Good for you, DJP. Yes, all my thoughts are based on past experiences. We saw that. 17 club. How are you by linearity? But you can't think of a place you don't know. Saw it a long time ago. Wow, it's so funny how it jumps. Can you explain again how the frame rate allows us to see the code? Yeah, essentially, I believe that the molecule essentially amps up the amount of frame rates of reality itself that we can perceive, and the code exists in some of the in-between frames from what we're usually seeing. So it comes into view the second that you have more of the frameworks of reality available for you to perceive. Do you think? Do you think? Oh, wait. Do you think could be lack of awareness in majority of people? What do you mean? That is, am I? Sorry, Val. What are you referring to? Lack of awareness of what? No, I'm saying that even in principle, you cannot describe a world. Like I'm saying that it's not possible even in principle. Like you can. It's not like if you're going to bring people's awareness, higher awareness, all of a sudden they're going to be aware of the choice. The choice cannot be described like as existing outside of the system, and yet it is somehow outside of the system, but not like attainable for anything in existence itself, is my claim. What are your thoughts on time being a liquid? We saw that. Yeah, I really like this idea actually. Even though time is a tricky thing because it's essentially anything with mass, according to the field equations, anything with mass essentially borrows its existence and therefore it moves through a particular point of translation in time. But anything that is massless, like the photons, for example, they essentially are timeless because they don't borrow anything. They move fully in the time, they don't move at all in the time direction at all. So the more you have mass, the more you move in time. The less you have mass, the less you move in time. Something without mass, like photons, they don't move in time at all. For them, the universe just beginning to end, it's all one thing. I agree, but also blah, blah, blah. So simulation theories, yes, sir. Unless that's not Bruce Lee. It is Bruce Lee. One of my favorite shirts. I wear it a lot. We may also have a choice to act on our thought or not. Choice involves more. No, you don't. See, this is the thing that it even upsets some people, and I get it, but it shouldn't. So, like, there's just no way that you can describe a moment of existence that existed on its own that could determine as a separate unit of determination. This is key. Not like a domino that is falling. So let's imagine dominoes that is falling from the beginning of time to the end of time, right? And even if you want to postulate that there's some kind of a randomness mechanism by which it pops new domino pieces all the time, and then some dominoes would fall and some won't, that's definitely happening. But when we say free will, if you really think about what it means, what we're postulating here is not this scenario in which everything just kind of falls, no matter how random, is that at points, there's some kind of a unit that pops out of that, looks at it, and then goes, let me think. I'll go right. And then it keeps falling. Okay. So what was that thing? What was that thing that jumped outside? Where is this outside? What is this process that happened outside that then determined left or right? See what I'm saying? You're basically creating an infinite regress that you cannot step outside of. So no amount of adding elements, subtracting elements, adding randomness, adding quantum doesn't matter. Under all logical circumstances, you cannot describe a world, even in principle, that would make sense of a free conscious unit that decides the next step versus the thing just unfolds. And in the thing that is unfolding, there is something that arises, which is an experience, which I believe is fundamental. And that experience has basically interactions with itself, but it's all just falling dominoes. And the stories that are created in the middle, they have this flux, and that flux is what we are. And I agree, there's like a big problem here. It's not like, we solved anything, but I think that the problem is not the free will. The problem is to describe how does the story, because if the story paints the moment in a different flavor, right? The same thing can happen to two different people, and depending on their predispensation, they would see it as a completely different thing. For example, let's think of something. It doesn't even have to be ambiguous. It just depends on people's predispensation, right? So, for example, we sit in a restaurant, right? There's two people, okay? And one person, the waitress comes over, and she's moving relatively fast, okay? and then she like does everything perfectly. She smiles and moves on, right? She puts water, let's say, and moves on. One person will go, "Oh my God, that's amazing. Look at her go. This is crazy. Look how many tables she has, and she handles the whole thing. That's incredible." The other person goes, "Dude, she didn't even just give us the time of the day. Like, she doesn't care. She just cares about the money, about the tips. She doesn't care." Same event, completely different perceptions. Who's right? Well, yes, there is a truth to the matter. Like, we don't know what was going exactly through her mind, but that part matters much less than what kind of an experience each person had in that moment. And that you can call that perception a choice. So the universe, the existence unfolds as it will. The choices are in the story. What kind of tone? What do you want to see? That is what changes, right? Now, I agree that you still have the same problem. We didn't solve the problem. It's still the same problem. But I think that the real conundrum is, how does that happen? What is this change in perception? What is this change in story? But that's the real mystery. And this is why what is this ultimate reason for everything existing is encapsulated in this word choice, which is the choice of seeing it for what it is and what it isn't. And ultimately, why does experience and existence came into the state of awareness? In other words, into the state of existing. Okay, let me read some of the comments. Uh, okay, Cal said, I'm not sold on free will or not free will, stuck in the middle. Yeah, I'm with you. I understand. It's just that, yeah, I thought about it quite a bit. You should watch the Sam Harris talk. It's a good one. Just do Sam Harris free will. Uh, space bitch. That's really funny. Blake is saying, does it matter that what career path I take because I feel that the universe system is guiding me to one? If that's what you feel, then you should definitely follow it. Have to drop. See you, Cal. Blake, but I feel the one it is guiding me to, I will not enjoy, but a different one I will enjoy more. Wait, so why do you think the universe is guiding you to it? What events are causing you to believe that the universe is guiding you towards that job that you think you're not going to enjoy? Because it seems like there's two competing factors inside of you that are not fully agreeing on what that is. But what are these? Let's start there. What are the events that you believe are the hint that the universe is aiming you there? About the black on black hard trick I was talking about, lack of awareness. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's lack of awareness, but the point is that you even things that on the so like it would be, if we would be rational players, you would expect that a lot more people would notice that they made a mistake, that that's not the person who was offered to them. But the fact is that even though the brain immediately forgot what it picked, nevertheless it never paused before it told the story about why it picked the thing it didn't pick. That's the point. That before you're even aware that you didn't pick that, you would still come up with a story. Matthew, I like what you were saying about all colors being piece of the puzzle. Oh yeah, that is wild. Matthew is referring to the fact that each spectrum of the laser, each frequency of the, not frequency, wavelength of the laser has its own part of the key of the puzzle. There are entities connected to the colors. Mm-hmm. I feel like simulation doesn't capture the nuance on what's going on. Mm, I think it's the closest word, AI nurse, that describes the actual state of what we're in. Because if you drill down to what a simulation really is, it's the closest thing. I think maybe the word simulacrum is closer, but it is definitely the closest one that I can think of, because it's definitely some kind of a environment based on what we call computation. First of all, I feel like there, if there are infinite realities, that would theoretically mean two identical realities will will eventually have a choice. Wait, why does that mean that? And despite having the exact same background, they will make different. So you can you definitely in different parallel worlds you have different choices being made or different trajectories that are unfolding. But again, what is meant by free will is an external, is some kind of a thing that we can call a conscious agent that is determining whether the thing is going to go left or right. This moment cannot be described logically. You can later in retrospect look at the whole system and say, look, different trajectories must have been different choices. But the moment of choice cannot be described. Do you think we're in some kind of future computer program, or it's something we couldn't even understand? Thank you for the question, AI Nurse. So this channel mostly revolves around the simulation hypothesis because I claim that I found proof that we live in a simulation, and this is why I do these daily conversations. I'm also engaged with some researchers in the field. Essentially, if you project the diffracted laser on the surface and ingest a particular molecule that I cannot name on the live chat, you will see code running in surfaces. This is one of numerous data points at this point. Some actually come from just hard physics that seem to point that the most rational and logical explanation is that we live in a computational environment of some sort. Is it run on a future computer program? I'm claiming yes. Some people say it's not enough to determine. My claim is yes. Nothing has meaning until you give it to it. I agree with that. Is that you, Lisa? How are you? Quantum geometry just came to me. There's such a thing, scientifically speaking. That is interesting. Thank you for coming back and sharing this thought, Sharon. Quantum geometry, that is a very interesting thought. Well, I think there has to be. So, because even though, the whole point of this is a very profound question because the whole point of quantum is that it's a quantized theory, right? So it basically takes what we thought of as geometry and it says, well, no, it's the product of discrete numbers that give rise to interactions and then gives rise to everything else. And the average of all of these discrete numbers is what gives rise to all the flowy thing that looks like geometry, continuous, something continuous. So a function in geometrical terms, a function is determined by the shape of something and the relationships that are created by that shape. And in a quantum world, you think of numbers just like digital, like just discrete numbers. But I do think that ultimately you can. I have to think about this a little bit more, but I do think you can talk about a geometrical quantum shape. In other words, it's a shape that also can be in a quantum state. I definitely think that's possible and maybe even inevitable, actually. If time is a liquid, random choice. If time is liquid, random choices could be made while it's unfolding and solidifying to 3D. It doesn't get you to the same free will that people mean by free will. So again, it's kind of like saying, well, because you have a continuous spectrum of some sort, then free will, right? Because liquid is a continuous body of sorts. And this is why fluid dynamics is so much more complex than most branches of physics, because it has a lot of interactions that are very chaotic and difficult to predict. But that's the same as saying as randomness gives you free choice, which still doesn't. My whole life before I felt like I was going to be an engineer, but lately now that I am in college studying an engineering degree, I feel that I want to do entrepreneurship more. And I feel that the interactions I have with people about my career influenced me enough where it'll force me to be an engineer. Interesting. What I would do, Blake, and I'm definitely not a life coach or advice giver on that in that regard, but just to give you from my life experience, what I would focus on is see if you can actually think about it like an engineer, and then isolate the most fundamental function that you think that each one of them promises to you as a person on a regular basis. What I mean by that is that there's elements in being an engineer that engages particular faculties of you as a person, right? Critical thinking, thinking about problems outside the box, innovation. Now, there's things on the surface, like obviously you would have to be, cerebral to an extent, and you have to combine it with creativity. Okay, that would be one function. Do you really like that? Does it have a capacity to burn you out really quickly? If you really like that enough to say, I'm willing to, you know, let go of a lot of other things, okay, that's a function that you want to maintain. So that's a good candidate for you to actually keep doing. Entrepreneurship, for example, gives you a much bigger open space. But in a lot of ways, it also includes engineering kind of thoughts, because you have to engineer a situation or engineer a market or think of a market like an engineer, right? What are the needs? What is the structure? So in that regard, it's actually very similar. Only as an entrepreneur, you're going to be working probably with a lot more people. Are you more of a people person? So I'm just giving you examples of what kind of calculations I would make. But ultimately, because your life is made mostly out of moments and not out of achievable big goals, because these goals just kind of happen, come and go. If on the day to day you want to deal with more people, you should lean more towards being an entrepreneur. If you feel like you actually want to go into like really solving problems and just kind of be more with you and the problem, I would go and become more of an engineer. Obviously, you still have a social life as an engineer, but it is a different kind of social life. Also, you're going to have to take a position more of a leader as an entrepreneur. So, like, there's all these factors, but just think of it in terms of what do you want to do on a daily basis, never stop, like till you retire, right? What would be that thing that you want more than anything? And think about it in these terms. And I wouldn't leave it too much to the universe, because ultimately, you are the universe doing what you're doing. So instead of thinking of the universe as an external force, the universe is buffering something, but you, as the conscious unit, is still functioning, and that's still part of the universe. So make the things that make you as a unit the happiest on like a regular basis. I encountered the Baphomet on mushrooms. He is part of blue and purple. That sounds wild, Matthew. In the free will, I am saying right now I have a choice to either put my left hand or right hand up. And assuming there are infinite realities, there would be a reality where I put my one left and one right. Good to hear from you, Lisa. Yeah, I sent you an invite. I don't know why I didn't bump you up. Bumped you up. Assuming there was right, Blake, about the putting your arms left and right. However, you are not the ultimate observer that knows all the outcomes. You are a fraction of the ultimate observer. So you seeing it from the perspective of only the history in which you put your right hand up or left hand up. And as the unit that only sees one of these possibilities, you cannot account for that moment that the decision was made to go right or left. The fact that you put your right arm up or left arm up does not change the fact that the idea that the conscious being that you are made that choice does not come into play. In fact, if you ask yourself, if you do this long enough and you ask yourself, how am I doing this? You don't even know how you're doing this. You have no idea. This is completely mysterious. Like you can say, yeah, but these neurons are firing. Yeah, but how are you, the one that you feel yourself to be, doing this? How are you doing this? You're just willing it to be. Okay, but what happens? Are you moving every single neuron to then make this happen in every single muscle? No, you have no idea. You're just willing it to happen and it just happens. So you can't even account for that. Everything is like that. That's my point. Future program or outside of time, outside of existence itself, I would say. Going back to simulacrum. So there are humans that are more real than us and they exist outside. In a sense, you can say that, yes. The sim or in different layers of sim or both. Yeah, I think it's kind of like simulations all the way up, essentially. That's the simplest way of describing it. Would you be willing to replace humans with beings? Why would that matter? Well, is this an ancestor simulation? I guess it's just beings beings is more broad because you don't know if the other simulations have humans. You're showing houses and you're doing this at the same time. This is amazing. As a liquid, there would be a way to multiple outcomes while it's forming in the present 3D. But a liquid also exists in 3D. So what's the issue? Thank you for the like, AI nurse. I appreciate you. Trying to apply a general algorithm so one can describe what's happening in hyperspace. Oh, this is a long comment, long time ago. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying ultimately, so like I started this conversation by saying, what are everybody's philosophical positions and how they influence your lives, if at all, if it's just more like entertainment. And I guess this would be a perfect example of that, which is like, the whole idea of free will. We can discuss it ad nauseum about, what the specifics. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? I think that ultimately, if it makes you not like reality, you should adopt a completely different view. I don't think that a philosophy, if the ultimate value that you carry is just logic, like it has to make sense, then you're kind of bound by that logic and you don't have a choice. You have to say it doesn't make any sense because logically, by the rules of logic, the way we define them, it doesn't make any sense. However, like I said, what I'm calling the old, like the version of a choice is essentially the way you view the situation. But still, I'm in the same problem. I don't know how that happens. I have no idea. And I can't describe a world in which all of a sudden I decided to view it that way or the other way. And then even if you want to say, but that depends on what kind of person you are. Okay, but I can't even account for why I'm this person versus another person. We only have the story, which seems to make sense of string of events, but I can't account for why this story and not some other story. But if the value that you carry is more of like somebody on YouTube said, MEF said on YouTube, she said that she goes towards the truth through acts of kindness, which is very interesting because I think that ultimately it sounds, from a logical perspective, it sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but I think it makes perfect sense because whatever we are is part of existence. So if we choose to lead a certain kind of life and it makes us feel a certain kind of way, that is one form of truth. That is a truth in existence about if you choose to go about it this way, this is how your life is unfolding. And if you can both serve a function that helps the universe ultimately answer some questions that it is interested in, quote unquote, but at the same time also enjoy more moments than you suffer, then everybody wins. And I think that's actually the deeper truth, or the more important thing, if you ask me. Let's see. Have you seen Hyperspace Nexus? Remind me? Is that, wait, is that a show or is that a Discord or is that a channel? What is that? Okay, thank you for your stance on all of this. And I also understand more of the free will idea. Thank you for your feedback, Blake. I appreciate it. If we choose versus free will. Wait, if we choose versus free will? What do you mean? Wouldn't free will be the ability to choose? Oh. Hyperspace lexicon, mapping the molecule. What is that? Can you tell me more about it, Cal? Oh, Google hyperspace lexicon. I'll do you one better. We'll do ChatGPT. Let's see. Hyperspace lexicon. Mapping the molecule. It says the concept of hyperspace lexicon or mapping the molecule can be interpreted in several ways depending on the context, such as science fiction. Oh, okay. So this is what ChatGPT is actually not helpful. Let's go to Google.
Okay, great.
So this is Oxford Psychedelic Society. Is this what you meant? Dr. Timmerman. Okay. Yeah. So is this what you're referring to? Choose which goes against stance on free will. Wait. Yes, you said if we choose which go. Yeah, that's what I'm tracks the other side of experience to map it out. Interesting. I will check it out. Thank you. So far, I only see a video. Yeah, this is why I said that even though what I'm describing as a choice is slightly different, but I think it's a more accurate representation of the real conundrum, which is the choice to see events from a certain filter. But ultimately, I'm admitting that I'm in the same position. This is not an explanation. It's just like I don't know what causes me to see it that way or another way. How to figure out if solipsism is real or not? The idea that we only know our own mind exists. Yeah, I think it's an unsolvable problem. Unsolvable problem. AI nurse. The only question is, does it matter to how you feel in the moment? I would say. Wouldn't it be easier for it to only simulate our perspective and everyone else is a sim, and that it doesn't have to load the rest of the world? Well, you can also well, yes and no. Yes, from the one end, but also no, because you would get a lot less data, and you don't have to render all of the world. You can just render the different perspectives, just like you're doing internet, and then like shared virtual reality space. So it's only rendering what your headset is showing. It's implying that something is here, but it's not rendered until you look there. So only when you look there, it manifests, it buffers, which, by the way, would explain the speed of light because it's the speed of causation. That's the buffering of the universe. Nothing can go faster than light because that's the speed of the computation. That's actually the buffering speed. But you would get a lot less data if there's only one experiencing unit. You want to collect data from all the experiencing units all at once. That would make more sense and it would be more computationally economical. After recent events, I'm convinced we are living in a simulation. Need to talk about how to hack it. I don't. So hack it implies that you're stuck somewhere, Debbie. I think that the simulation just means that it's just layers of reality. You're not stuck in one. You just happen to find yourself in one. You're not more stuck in the simulation than you were stuck in a physical universe. Oh, thanks for the link, Cal. I appreciate it. Have you tried the console? I mean, what do you mean tried? Like, did I manage to make something new happen there? No, not so far. No. Does that make sense, AI nurse? By the way, because if you're trying to collect data, you would want different perspectives on that data, not just one. How often do you access the console? Now, not so much. I mean, every time I smoke it, it's there. But now I don't do it more than like once a month, or I used to do it like once a week after the whole craziness, 7 times a day for like a year plus. We can change the simulation. I would slightly modify it. I would say that you would move to a different portion of the simulation in which you exert more control. But you can never exit out of it because the whole of existence is essentially a computational system. Well, only once a month? I don't know. It doesn't unless it serves like a particular function at this point, in which I'm trying to like run an experiment or do something. I don't know. I guess I'm busy doing a lot of other things. Trying to focus more on building something that would, I don't know. I feel called to do something that actually contributes to other people's lives. I guess this isn't one attempt to do that, to see what I can engage with that is either entertaining, fun, or maybe even helpful in life. And then slowly, I feel like I will find my voice into where it's needed. So I'm putting a lot of emphasis on that. Working on the theory on the side, working on my. I have to do a lot of practice that I haven't done in a long time. I have to work on my math all the time. I have to work on my physics skills. All these things that kind of, it's kind of like riding a bike, but not exactly, because if you don't practice, there's certain technical things that you have to do on a regular basis to make it like flow. So I don't know. See, I have all these reasons. I don't know the real reason. I just don't. Just do it once a month. Uh, This is contributing probably more than you know. Oh, wow. I really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. Can the simulation glitch? I think it can. Yeah. I think nothing is perfect. Thank you for the question, MEF. Why? Did you notice glitches recently? But not often, by the way. I wouldn't say it does it often. And I would say that the ultimate simulation is just like the glitch is part of the simulation because it's the ultimate object. And yeah, thank you for the comment, Kel. It means a lot. Yeah, slowly trying to understand what people really want more, but also what actually like is a net positive. I get caught up in how the many world interpretations can handle more than one observational unit. AI nerds, that's a great comment. A good work to look at is Stephen Wolfram's Ruliad and hypergraph theory, in which he describes that this graph describes all the possible trajectories, and on it somewhere our world exists. And in fact, they managed to reproduce the field equations, quantum physics, quantum field theory, and even some of string theory. So it's a real candidate to potentially being a framework to start working on the theory of everything. And essentially, if you look at it from that perspective, the Ruliad is the graph that describes all possible rules, which would be the mother of all graphs, right? Because it describes literally on every step what are the rules by which all the systems operate on that level, and then these rules give rise to the next branching out of rules, and then ultimately, if you look all the way up to the top, you will find the ultimate rule, the one that gave rise to all the other rules, which is the ultimate kind of like alpha, right? And in that sense, the ultimate observer would be the system itself that can see the full totality of all the possible trajectories. And the observer basically the different observers branch out throughout. It's like a fragmentation of all the branches. And a closer example to home that would make sense of it. They studied people with altered personalities, and they discovered in some cases that when you ask a person with, let's say, four alters for the four different personalities after having a dream, when the different personalities are present, they would describe the dream from different perspectives, and they would even report one another in the dream. And I think that's exactly the situation we're in. It's just that the universal mind is dreaming all the possibilities of all of us and way beyond. What if you could purify the simulation? What do you mean by purify? Toretromex. I would love to walk through of your wait. I would love a walkthrough of your molecule experience as much as you can remember. What was the book again? Lisa, the one that I told you about? The Gene Keys. The Gene Keys. And good luck with showing houses, by the way. Would you like a walkthrough of your molecule experience? Absolutely. Molecule experience. Well, when I smoke it, I basically see these devices that come into the room. One of them is the console, that the graphics of which I'm sure you saw in my videos. And then if I smoked enough, then this almost like I don't know what to describe it. It's not a helmet, but it's like a thing. What else can I call it, right? That comes in front of me. It's very concrete. Again, I want to emphasize like an object, straight up like an object. It just comes to me, sits right here. Also, the way it moves, it's like very, spatially concrete. And then it vibrates the space in a particular frequency, and I can feel it. It goes like, and then it like takes me to wherever I gotta go. They show me whatever, if there's a message or something, or they want to teach me something. And then when I snap back, the console is opening right in front of me. And then it comes in front of me. In a nutshell. Everything is super toxic. Once you clean the impurities, the simulation ecosystems are controllable. So I would be very careful with that, because every time you try to purify something, you ignore the fact that the yin yang is the reason why it's what it is. You have balance in existence. And if you're going to try and eradicate one side of the equation, you have a completely uneven ground that actually causes the ultimate disaster. This is why, if you ask me, at the center of the white, you have all black. At the center of the black, you have all white. What it means to me is that, I guess if you want to use crude terms, the good has the ultimate evil at the core of it, and the evil has the ultimate good at the core of it. And if you don't allow for this balance, the ultimate darkness will flow out of the light, and that's no bueno. The way that I interpret it in life is that I don't know if you ever met people that really trying to be good, and you can see they're really trying. What is happening there is that, kind of Carl Jung's idea where they just push away the impossible to eradicate shadow that is all part of all of us. So instead of embracing it, they push it away. They pretend it's not there. And it's the type of people that are just like constantly trying to be overly nice. And it's both exhausting to be in the presence of people like that, and also it's unnerving. I don't know if you noticed that. It's very uncomfortable because there's an implicit assumption in their behavior that you should first play their game and allow them to be that without ever challenging it. Because look, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. I mean, obviously, it's not that obvious, right? It's people that are like, oh yeah, yeah, I'm good, yeah, totally. They're always like this. So when you just meet somebody like that, okay, that's fine. It's like, just being polite. But if you get to know them, and they keep being like that without showing any shade of 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 anything that is like a kink or something that is human, first, that's a very uncomfortable person to be around, and second, it's a very dangerous person to be around, because these are the people that are not even aware that all the stuff that they refuse to look at in themselves, they see it in others because they project it, and then they see everybody as the enemy and sometimes themselves as the victim, and then the second you trip on one wire, they go ballistic, and they still blame you. I'm sure that you guys can think of examples, right? That is somebody who's trying to pretend like the shadow doesn't exist. You cannot eradicate the shadow because it's part of existence itself. It's part of it. It's also not the goal. The goal is to come to some kind of an equilibrium in which you can master both sides and react appropriately to whatever the situation brings about. So people who enter into the spiritual community without first going to their own shadows and understanding them and admitting that they have all of these attributes inside themselves, they are the most dangerous people, because they're both delusional and they're the ones that ending up hurting the most people in the end. How you doing, Romy? Oh, thank you, baby. I hate when that happens. Thank you, man. Let's see. It just got stuck on me. You guys can still hear me? I don't know why it gets stuck on me. How did it get back last time? I have no idea. Just get stuck like this sometimes. Yeah, I know. It's I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me try and read.
I'm walking down this.
There we go. All right, we're back. I don't know what happened. Every time it kind of jumps and then it does that. It's very annoying. So anyways. Oh, we lost all the comments. Oh, that sucks. Okay, guys, so you're going to have to recomment. The last one I see is by Chillaxed. What about purifying you moving the third dimension like spiral? Yeah, pure white is just as blinding as pure darkness. We need polarity and balance. I agree. It will extend life to the fullest and add to the quality of life. But I don't think so. To Retro Max, I don't think that means all white. I think it just, hey Danny, hope you're well. Thank you so much, Muse. I think all it means is that we just find new solutions, but that does not imply white or black. In fact, anything. Good to see you, Romy. In fact, anything that has some kind of a structure contains some of the dark, because what the dark responsible for, or the shadow what is responsible for, is the structure. White is all open-ended, right? It's all open. It's energy flowing, open-ended. The black is the structures. So if you have too much one of them, then it's just too much structure. It's too rigid. If you have too much of the open-ended, you have nothing. It's all just chaotic soup. So you got to have the balance. So if we find solutions for, let's say, eternal life, things like that, that's not, I don't see it as just white. It's just a balanced system, essentially. And by the way, it's nowhere written that like there are life forms that are eternal. In fact, genes are, right? So, and there are different organisms that live forever unless you squash them. So technically, it's not impossible. I'm in sauna, so could be my phone overheating as well. No. It was mine. Mine just all of a sudden paused. It sucks that we lost the comments. I hope it was still recording. Again, thank you, Muse. I caught the end of your liquid time. Did you happen to discuss timeline jumps? Your thoughts? The console is like a real VR set? Yep, straight up. Straight up like augmented reality. As for timeline jumps, Lisa, I'm not so sure what you're referring to. You mean like we jump? Oh, you mean like jumping between timelines? Oh, I think that's like constantly. Like that's what it is. Like you're not really moving through time. You're moving through timelines. Like you're constantly moving through the possible world. Like the translation in time is essentially a translation of branching every second. It just like moves through these scenarios. Do you think we should strive to live forever, become transhumanist robots? Yeah, I think these terms are a little explosive. So, like, transhumanist implies that it's almost like there's something special about our stage of the evolution. So, even though most people who kind of think of, I don't know if you are, but most people who invoke the term transhumanist, they usually using it as a derogatory term. And what's hiding in the core of this assumption is, even though most people that invoke it, they have this T-Rex hands. They have this predisposition to think in terms of holistic and good, and we should, technology is very dangerous. Like it usually has this kind of connotation to it. But what's hiding in this core of it is actually hubris, because it implies that there's something special about our point in evolution. And there isn't. It's just evolution. We're just part of a continuum. So if we're moving towards a world in which information keeps evolving more and more and more, so if we're moving towards a world in which information keeps evolving more and more and more, it's just part of that, and technology is part of that. And there's nothing special about exactly where we are right now. So in that regard, transhumanist is not really a thing that I think should be invoked as a robots. But absolutely, we should live forever. Why not? You can always choose not to live. There's nothing. This idea that us by trying, we're trying to remedy disease, and death is just the ultimate disease. It's all it is. This idea that trying to cheat death is somehow forbidden. It's essentially it's like the ultimate. What's the term? What's that term when it's a city in Sweden, right? When somebody falls in love with with somebody who captured them and tortured them. I forget the term of it right now. It's a very common term. It's a city in Sweden. I forget what it's. Copenhagen. No. That's Copenhagen interpretation. What's the term? Somebody put it in the chat. You know what I mean. So it's essentially that, right? You fell in love with the thing that hurts you because you believe that there's no other way. But it's an illusion. There's no reason why we shouldn't live forever. Do you know why the darkness seen the light and comprehend? Wait. Do you know why the darkness seen the light and comprehended it not? Is this a question, or are you asking me? Like, is this? Do you have an answer? Or are you asking me? Also, I'm not sure that I fully understand the question. Do you know why the darkness seen the light and comprehended it not? If you can explain a little bit more, or is there something after? Well, I think there's definitely something after, in the sense that there's other layers of existence, but there's no reason to not extend our stay in this layer. Because, for example, we start understanding things in much later age, an age that most people didn't live to through most of history, that opens a new door into new wisdom. The only real big downside in old age at the moment is how shitty you feel. So if you have to be like you're 90 for 10,000 years, that's awful. But if you get to be 30 for 10,000 years, that's awesome. So it all depends on how it actually feels to be moment to moment, the amount of wisdom we're going to gain. And if this idea that somehow we're going to run out of space, that's also an illusion, because, the universe is literally infinite. What's your thoughts on the transition from 3D to 5D I've been seeing on TikTok? Yeah, chillax. I mean, I know a lot of people invoke these concepts, but most people, when I ask them, the ones that invoke these concepts, they have no idea what the word dimension means. And this is not to, to throw dirt on anyone. It's just that I don't know what they mean by 5D, and I don't think they do. So unless you want to define it, I would love to engage with that question. Your thoughts on if you're talking about the awakening process, then I can say that I'm definitely seeing a lot of hints that this is actually happening. But this whole insistence that we know what, people insist that 5D, 4D, and they have no idea what that means. I'm trying it. Wish me luck. Good luck. Like when celebrities die for the third time, they said it just happened again this. Wait. Like when celebrities die for the third time, they said it just happened again this week. What do you mean? For the third time, celebrities die for the. I'm confused. Because the light is its programmed undoing. Did you know that God has tech? Ancients of these technologies. Stockholm syndrome. Thank you, Chillax. I appreciate it. Yep. Stockholm. Yeah. So death is the idea that we cannot cheat death is the ultimate Stockholm syndrome. Because the light was the darkness programmed undoing. Did you know that God has technology? Well, yeah, I knew God has technology. He's speaking very like a poetic riddle, which is cool. But I think I need to do some work trying to read between the lines. I think if you want to formulate your question in a more coherent way, or make your comment in a more coherent way that is not so mystical, I would love to engage with it more. Because in order to break down what I think you're saying, it's like a 30-minute roundabout. Oh, well, sorry. Are you speaking for God right now? Hard to explain to the short comments. Feel their pain. John 1:1. Oh, here we go. Okay. Thank you, MEF. Can the simulation glitch? Like deja vu is a glitch in the Matrix? I'm not sure it's a glitch. I think it's just a failure of our perception. Totally agree, but the too nice personality, I see it as a trauma response. And yes, doing shadow work heals it. Yep. Can you make more content on YouTube, please, about the code, the new experiment? It's good stuff. Thank you so much, Mel. Yeah, I definitely will. Definitely will. It's just that recently I've been really engaged with the documentary and other things. So it took a little bit away from me creating content, but I'm working on that. The next talk I'm going to have is going to be with Lev Levitin, that I'm going to publish soon. He's a really known physicist that wrote some seminal papers in the 70s about computation. So it's going to be a really interesting talk. Not only is death is unavoidable, the ultimate Stockholm syndrome, it could also be an illusion. Well, at least in this round, it seems to not be an illusion at the moment, unless you want to say that we automatically don't die, and it's just the whole thing was just a program designed to make us believe that we die. Possible. I'm not gonna rule it out. We develop verbose as possible. You got it, Cal. I appreciate it. I mean, it's funny because I'm actually trying to learn to talk a little less, or say more with less words. So this is why I'm challenging myself to write more now. And eventually, when I feel like it's good enough, I'll throw it on a Substack. I actually really love to write, and I haven't done this in a long time. And let me tell you, you definitely lose the skill to be very coherent when you don't write for a while. Research the terms I commented. He commented. Let's see. John 1:1. I also put it in my physics chat GPT. Let's see what it comes up with. Is a verse from the Bible, specifically from the Gospel of John in the New Testament. It is foundational scripture for many Christians, emphasizing the divinity of Jesus Christ. Here's the verse in several popular translations. King James. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. Okay, so it's basically the beginning of everything, right? Yeah, there's a lot of actually interesting interpretations of these first few lines. And you can think of the first word as basically like code, the first code, right? They gave rise to everything else. But the code was also God. You can think of it in these terms. So it's the code that gave rise to itself, essentially. Next, the goggles are shiny and metallic. The goggles are shiny and metallic. They smell like plastic, etc. Do you know what the code word DOE word is? Christ. No. Wait. Was that a typo or what does no mean in Christianity? Not have a specific. Oh, I think it was a. You mean so? Toratromex. You meant. Do you know what the code word Christ word is? Is that what you meant to say? Do you think the simulation has given us sacred texts to respect, or should we turn towards atheism? Biblically, that's a really deep question, AI nurse. I'll approach it in a moment. Biblically speaking, the word is Christ. Well, there's Yoshua is the original name, as I'm sure you know, which is a Hebrew name. Well, what do you please enlighten us? Yeah, I know texts aren't sacred. They are only to be a pointer to discover something tangible or yourself. Yoshua. Yep. Okay. Which is literally mean the Messiah. The Oshia in Hebrew means to save. Something you can directly experience. No. Yoshua does not mean I am. In Hebrew, it does not mean I am. Yeah, I am salvation. Well, Yehoshua, you can think of it in terms of Yehoshua, Shua, Yehovah, which also, by the way, the beginning of Yo, like the God's name, right? Shua. Something in probably in numerology that would fit there. That would be very interesting. Do you think the code discovery is something the Egyptians used, like a cheat code? Maybe. I think people are making a little bit too much of the whole Egyptian thing. I'll be honest with you. the father your son. Yeah, but now you're combining English and Hebrew, which English is a much later language, and original Christianity was not in English, right? It was in Roman, so it was in Latin, right? So now you're combining a language, arbitrarily combining a language that didn't exist back then and applying, I see what you're saying. So Yoshua, right? But now you're just playing an arbitrary game, which you can do with many things. You think this code is one second, Yoshua, the father Yoshua. Father Yoshua. Oh, interesting, actually. Yoshua, father Yoshua. So the only difference is and by the way, Hove in Hebrew, the second part of the Yehovah is present. Hove is present in Hebrew. So yeah, it is present. And Yoshua, which means it's salvation, that is actually very interesting. I didn't think of that. And I'm not forgetting your question, AI nurse. One second. There's theorized the Egyptians could astral project and would get information from astral. Maybe. I don't know. Again, a lot of these things are just people making very deep connections from numbers that are very arbitrary based on units that are not even compatible. They took both of these names out of the Bible. Baileo 4K times replaced it with Lord 4 times. No, that wasn't what I was saying. I can come up if you want. It doesn't allow me to send you an invite for some reason, by the way. One second. Why do you discredit or not impressed with the Egyptian technologies? Curious. It's the way that people make these arguments. It's just they're arbitrary. So, for example, you know how even people that I deeply respect, like what's his name? Why am I spacing on everybody's name today? Forget his name right now. But Robert Grant, right? Super respect this guy, incredible mind, and he's really on this hobby horse of talking about Egypt, right? Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. Maybe, yeah. There's even a good possibility, I would say. But I think that what turns me off from it is the way that people make these arguments. It doesn't run through. So, like, for example, when Robert Grant is talking about all these measurements, right? When he compares the different things in the pyramids. So, for example, he's using miles as a unit, and then he talks about the speed of light, right? But in his calculations, if I'm not mistaken, he's also using the metric system. So that's an arbitrary jump from one to another. And because when you use it, changing the units, you're changing the numbers, it doesn't mean much because you can do this with a lot of things, right? If you have unitless numbers, that's a different story, but he's not using unitless numbers. And as far as I know, nobody is using unitless numbers to make these arguments. Unitless numbers means it's numbers that just describe pure relationship without having any like kilometers or anything attached to it that cancels out. I go live, you can stop in if you want. Okay. Yeah, I might stop in later if I have time to join us. Thank you. I'm gonna see. I don't know when you're going live, but here I'll follow you and then I'll see you live. Thank you. Well, it's not necessarily Egyptian. See Peru, Japan, Roman. Yeah, I do think that all the civilizations probably had some things happening, but I think that I think it's just. I have to look at it closer. I'll be honest. I have to look at it closer. Just so far from what I'm seeing, the way that people make these claims, it's extremely flimsy. And I don't think there's a need for it. I think we can actually discover real things if we're a little bit more rigorous with this stuff. And I think that's what turns me off about it. Can you do there must be ratios? Exactly. As for your question, AI nurse, I was an atheist most of my life. And I have to admit that only when I actually learned about what I discovered and then started interacting with certain people and then started seeing that certain things are happening around me that are truly, I guess you can call them miraculous, but they're just extra. They really are from another level, right? And because I'm experiencing them on a regular basis, I actually have to follow the scientific method into it, which is interesting. So because I know I'm experiencing it for sure and I'm documenting everything, so I can actually show other people what led me to this understanding. Like I said, most people that make all of these claims, they either don't track it very well or they don't document it very well. So they make very, very flimsy cases, which can have, I can make, I can explain what most people are talking about this stuff like very easily without the need for anything extra special, right? But because I'm experiencing these things, I all of a sudden started saying, if I follow the scientific method into it and don't get bogged down by the axioms of what the current scientific zeitgeist believes, then I have to admit that something else is happening here. That led me to the understanding that actually there is something very true about what religions are trying to teach. There's some kind of an order. There's some kind of, there are some kind of rules that unless you follow them, you go through a particular trajectory of experience, even beyond the point where your physical body exists. I'm now seeing it without a doubt. So in that regard, I cannot recommend to follow atheism. 10 years ago, I'd absolutely recommend it because I didn't see the need to keep lying to ourselves about certain things. But now I understand these things are not lies. However, I want to still maintain that if unless I would have these experiences, I would have no reason to entertain these things. And I feel that if it's truly maybe not the biblical God, but like there has to be a little bit more compassion towards the state of mind of a lot of people in the modern world where they don't have access to these experiences. And if they don't, and they don't have a way to, they don't have a reason to follow that, because people say, well, you can just feel it. You can just feel it. It's like an intuition. Not everybody has that feeling. I never had that feeling. I only started having these interactions after I logically arrived at some conclusions, actually, and then I followed it, and all of a sudden I discovered that all of these things are happening. But if it would never happen to me, so you want to tell me that then I would be damned? That's not fair. So I'm very compassionate towards both sides, and this is why I feel like I can play somewhat of a bridge. But I want to encourage people in the spiritual space and the religious space to extend a little bit more understanding towards the state of mind of people who might not share the intuition. That is true compassion, right? And then maybe allow ourselves to speak the language that makes more sense, that can bring people into the deeper understanding and potentially start having the experiences on their own. And then you can say, okay, well, now you can actually feel it. You open up to it. So in that regard, I can definitely not recommend atheism. I also now see, now that I'm on the other side of the coin of like understanding that something else is actually happening, I can now see when I'm outside of that bubble that actually the idea that there is nothing beyond is as stand on the same logical ground as there is something beyond. Now, logically, it is true to say that postulating an infinitely complex God is not a good way to start a philosophical idea, because now you have to explain the God. And to say, well, God always existed is the same as saying, well, the universe always existed. That argument still stands. It makes sense. But after certain experiences, you can start feeling that something else is happening, whatever it is. Then you can start be a little bit more kind of like, okay, I see that something is happening, right? But again, you have to open that channel first. And people who that channel is not open for them, you have to help them open it without condemning them and saying, well, if you just say these things and if you just behave this way, everything is going to be all right. That's not fair. And also, it feels like cheating. You want the people to actually follow the way of that stuff because they understand why, versus just kind of listening to somebody and believing them. Is that? I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Well, that's phenomenal, brother. Keep pressing. Thank you, Toucher Max. Everywhere you look, it will lead you to the truth. Nowhere to run or hide. Yep. I needed that reminder to be more compassionate towards religion. There are overlaps in beliefs for me. Row, row, row your boat. It's so funny how when you write that, your brain cannot read it in any other way but the song. And now my OCD has to complete the song, so everybody bear with me. Gently down the stream, merrily, merrily, merrily. You're missing one merrily, man. Life is but a dream. Boom. Let's see. We have some comments on YouTube. Thank you for all the likes, guys. Deeply appreciated. Ken, the simulation glitch. Stockholm syndrome. Is there Jesus in the simulation? Let me go back to this question in a moment, Brian. Forbes, also Aramaic and Hebrew. Signing off. Good night. Oh, bye, Molly. Brian Forbes, I agree about the Egypt argument. Yes, the spiritual battle of good and evil is very, very real. As about Jesus, so let me tell you something. It's weird because I wasn't even brought up in the Christian tradition. And even though, okay, I guess you can say my grandmother was a Christian, but I never felt the influence of it. And I was an atheist most of my life. So as far as I know, I don't have any of these elements of these archetypes hovering somewhere in my subconscious. And people can say, yeah, but you can't really know. No, I can know. Like, it's really nowhere to be found, or at least like not even close to even entertaining it or even thinking it's interesting, to be honest. I always thought it's actually not even a question of right or wrong. It was just boring to me. It was like, I don't even know why this grabs people, why this is interesting. And I have to tell you, I saw a vision one time recently, last year, that included straight up Jesus Christ. And that was strange. I don't know what to make of it still. I think that maybe metaphorically, whatever Jesus represented, that function of the Savior actually is playing out somehow. Not very clear to me how. One of the things that kind of made some sense of it is that there seems to be, these are going to be very, these are going to be, I'm going to be using terms that don't usually fit into that world, but we're going to do that to make it simple. So imagine as if on the universal scale, somebody struck a new deal with the ultimate thing, right? And the new deal versus so it used to be that karma was personal, right? And because of that, every person, in order to get to what you would call heaven, you have to be perfect, because otherwise you cannot get there. You can't survive in that pure environment. And that's almost unattainable, right? So essentially what Jesus was, he was a representation of this one culminating entity, one culminating energy that took the ultimate consequence on itself. It basically bared look at that. It bared you guys didn't see, but on YouTube it made a heart. This is awesome. I wish the phone would do that too. It bared the ultimate karma for everybody, but the price, the currency that you have to pay in order to buy into this energy that took the ultimate karma for you, so you don't have to be perfect, is that you have to accept that Jesus Christ is God. And if you can accept it in your heart, then you paid currency to buy into the system, and now you are covered by this insurance policy, basically. Okay? But what I'm seeing now is that we're entering a new stage in which a new deal is struck, a new age in which we all share. So it's not personal, and it's not one unit that shares this karma. It's a collective karma now. So we all together have to get our act together, but we don't have to be perfect, each one of us, but together we have to get closer to perfection. And this is why the internet is invented and all of these things on the physical level that represents unity, that represents coming together. You see what I mean? And this is also why all the turmoil right now makes perfect sense, because we're essentially like, whoa, and then we have to kind of like decide together how we're going to proceed. Are we going to be the civilization that goes into infinity and goes into space? Or are we the ones that we're just not worthy yet? We have to repeat certain things. We don't know. And I do think that we're seeing the beginning of understanding that we can actually step back from the precipice that all the previous generations couldn't. So previous generations had to be that righteous Roomba that just hit the walls, explosion at the end, and then everybody calms down. Crescendo, explosion, calm down. Crescendo, explosion, calm down, constantly. and like a combustion engine. And now we are the first one that have the possibility to not do that, to get to almost a crescendo and go, breathe. Next stage, expansive, and then we go up. So we have the possibility to do that. So we share the karma together essentially, and we release Jesus Christ from these responsibilities, so he can move on to become just one with the nirvana, so to speak. Does that make sense? Born into Christianity. No, let's see. How you doing, Aba? Good to see you. The Commandress. I'm gonna try and let me see. Go through the comments. SU right. Wait. SU right. Thought there was 3. I don't know what that means. Then you realize the Egyptians worked with pizza toppings in your molecule you are using. No, I'm not realizing it. I'm not so sure about that. A lot of these claims are very overblown, just so you guys know. That you would need some proof that these artifacts existed, that they could make it. I'm not ruling it out that the Egyptians probably had some deep knowledge and they had even ways to go into like transcendent states and all of that. I'm not saying no. I'm saying that the way that people make these arguments today are flimsy at the best. They're not good arguments. They didn't arrive there in a way that is satisfactory to me. Near-death experiences report seeing whatever deity they believe in during the time of their NDE. Interesting that you saw Jesus, but you have never bought into Christianity. Yeshua says it's like a log near the beach. Each wave, life can take the log closer to the sand. Wait, so what would be the sand in this metaphor? Just following you on X. Wish you were more active there. Yeah. You know, AI nurse, I have to tell you, I don't understand X or Twitter in general. I can't quite understand the audience. People are very, very cliquey, for no good reason, if you ask me. Thank you, Rainer. I mean, it was a beautiful vision. It wasn't. I can't say that I came up with it. I just saw it. I'd suggest you look into there. Is a lot of proof. They have drawings in the stone of it. Oh, please send me. I'm always open. Well, by the way, I'm always very open. I'm just telling you, everything I saw so far is extremely unsatisfactory. But if you want to send me images, I'm always going to look at them and comment on them. I always engage with this stuff. And you can also email me, lasersimulationx@gmail.com, lasersimulationx@gmail.com. I always respond to my emails. If you want to share some images with me, I'm very open to that. Back to perfection. Well, they have drawings of them dabbing. They just have pictures of bongs. Dennis McKenna has a bounty on finding the strain of pizza toppings at the moment. I'm actually reading his book right now. Very cool book about his life with Terrence. And since I'm one of Terrence's biggest fans, this is gold. This is gold. Check it out. We'll do. Yeah, please, Val. I encourage that. Let's see what we have on YouTube. Also, American Hebrew. Good night, MEF. Yes. Thank you for all the hearts, guys. What is the new deal with what? With info something come from? Info. I don't quite understand, Brian, what you mean by where does the New Deal info come from? Oh, the New Deal. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it was a vision that I saw, or actually a collection of different visions that I kind of put together. And it also makes sense, right? Like you would imagine. So if you believe that there's this higher space that then projects whatever happens there into the 3-dimensional space that we occupy, so this is the result of whatever happens in the higher space, then the evolution would be more and more perfect ways of balance, right? So if you can if you can pass on the baton to every unit, that they can actually, formulate a more perfect tapestry, then you don't have to worry about it so much. So the less you need to exert influence to police a certain system, the better it is. So in terms of like levels of the simulation, this is what I'm saying in my video, Are We the AGI? When you reach a certain level of, wholesomeness, I guess you can call it, you need to be policed less and you can be trusted with more. And essentially that's what kind of like where we're arriving. And now it's a big question. Now we're going to have this ultimate test of like, can we take all this craziness that we're going through in all the ways? Like I totally see how, like, for example, what happened with Trump, like in a parallel timeline, the meme where his head is like this versus like this, right? 1 inch and he would be dead. So I can totally see how in a parallel timeline his head was like this, and right now we were already in civil war when that happened, right? So I can totally see how we actually still in a timeline where we have a really good chance of not going nuts, but actually making it and being the ones that breaking through. Found you today. I don't disagree with anything you say. Used to grow mushrooms. Awesome. Well, welcome, Funkworm. It's intensive. Find strain. Wait. I think a good way to find strain is to do dieta. I love dieta. Paul Stamets is involved in the hunt for the strain as well. He's actually the one with the reward. Wait, what strain specifically? I think I missed something. What strain of pizza toppings you guys are talking about? If it was real bullets instead of blanks. Yeah, I'm not getting into the whole conspiracy thing. I think it's arbitrary. I don't think Trump would ever risk it. There's solid analysis of being illusion and shooting. This yeah, but they killed a person. So whenever you're talking about a conspiracy theory, they just kill the dude. It's I mean, possible, but I'm always entertaining it less. Most people are not psychopaths. This time, and by the way, Trump was already Trump was winning. Like, it was clear. Like, it didn't need that to put it over the top, right? And just to be clear, this is not my political opinion for or against Trump. I'm just saying that objectively, making the case for Biden was very difficult at that point. So I don't see a reason to do something like that. The timeliness goes to civil war after Trump makes himself a dictator. The one in Egypt, they kill all the time. I've had the idea of integration. Wait. I had an idea of integrating our internet with the mushroom fungal networks under the soil. Yeah, I know. I think you texted me, and I texted you back. That's a really cool idea. Ocean analysis. Psychedelic mushrooms is what Val is talking about. Yeah, but what do you mean? They are available, no? A strain that they think is depicted in. Oh, I see the specific ones. Okay, I see. There was a headline like 2 days before the shooting. No, I see. So blah blah. Let me just tell you, like, I'll be honest with you, like, these things don't really pull my attention too much. And I think that what most people miss when it comes to this kind of stuff, if you have any tactical training, which most people don't, so I can understand, you will start to understand how difficult these things are, right? So even if you want to say, and again, I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's not really that interesting to me. But even in the hypothesis that you had like a fake bullet, and then he had like some kind of a patch here that like released blood. Okay, the sounds of the bullets, that was real bullets, 100%. Like, I can tell you because I know the sound, and 2 people died, right? So the shooter and another guy. And then if you want to go beyond that, it's like, well, they kill people all the time. Again, I have a little bit of experience in this stuff, and I also know quite a few people in things like the Secret Service. I understand a thing or two about how these things are like operated. You'll be surprised how much of it is actually just very straightforward and not like you imagine, to have this like evil cabal behind the thing. It's just people that show up to work and drink coffee. So don't attribute too much to that, or that's my take on it. As its own internet through masculine foundation. Yeah. You really love conspiracy theories, don't you? Blah blah. It is. Let's see. Cool. Ooh, let's see if we can get to 10,000 today. Guys, if you don't mind giving it some likes to see if we can actually amp up some more people for the last 10, 20 minutes. And let's see if we can get to 10,000. That would be great. I think it would be a record for this chat. Thank you. Appreciate it. And the thing about networks and mycelium, yeah, it's always worth watching. Again, I'm very open. So whenever I have time, I'm always looking through these things. So send it over. The whole network thing is super interesting because networks is really what makes everything go around, right? From networks of stars, star formations in star nurseries in space to things on Earth to the internet. It seems that networks is the way that the universe is doing everything essentially. And if you look at the universe as a whole, it itself looks like a complete network. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there was actually an analysis of the topology of this famous image of the universe at large, combined side by side with an image of a neuron, right? And first people said, well, it just kind of looks the same. Who cares, right? But somebody actually ran a mathematical analysis on the topology of both of these spaces, and they discovered that the topology matches very closely. So you can literally say that the universal network is a type of a neural network of some sort. With one change, by the way, which is an interesting difference, that because of the speed of causation, because of the speed of light, the only thing that can be registered in a system is by having a back propagation. So like it has to have a back feedback of the same signal going back and forth. So whatever is behind can actually know that what was, it has to go in a loop to register that something happened. Almost there. Let's keep tapping just a little bit more. Let's give it another 1,500. I want to get to 10,000 today. And then basically what happens is that because the universe is so large, so the universal mind is aware, but not aware of itself. Does that make sense? Because what happens is that essentially you have a situation that information goes out, but it didn't have enough time to look back. So there's not even, the universe never formulated a thought about itself before because the speed of light actually prevents that from happening. Does that make sense? Which I actually love this kind of thinking because it's very interesting. It would also make sense of the situation because the ultimate universal mind, and this is something that Bernardo Kastrup is talking about a lot, the universal mind will not have an outside, so it doesn't have any goals or relationship to anything else, so it doesn't have the same kind of qualia like things inside of it. Things inside of it always have an external environment to refer to, and because of that it has a relationship of self versus outside. But the universal mind does not have an outside. It is all there is, so it doesn't have this relationship to a self because it does not have anything to be a self to. Like there's nothing that is here versus there. Does that make sense? We're almost there. We're almost at 10,000. We can do this. And come on. So yeah, 10,000. Awesome. I don't know what this means now. We'll see if there's more people. But yeah, I hope this makes sense. I really love this image of the universe. Yes, you're right. It looks like a fungus, two-way channel versus one-way channel. Got to get back to my tasks later. See you later. Have you ever talked with Thomas Campbell? No, but I would love to. You know what? I should reach out. I think this would be great. Hey, research Terence McKenna. Terence McKenna is my all-time favorite. I'm actually writing a movie about him, and I what gave me the ideas originally to think in this direction that eventually led me to discover the laser was Terence. He's one of my heroes. I have a connect. We should do a call soon. Oh, absolutely, Brian. Brian, is that you, man? How you doing, man? Brian is a good friend, dude. So good to see you, dude. Yeah, Thomas Campbell would be rad. If you have a connect, that would be amazing. Let's jump on a call soon. Brian is a genius composer and a musician and a dear friend. He's also crazy in all the best ways possible. You gotta be if you're gonna be good at something as good as you are in music. He's hosting a consciousness conference that I'm actually presenting at with next folks. I think it'd be. Oh yeah, that would be amazing, man. Where's the conference? Is it on the moon? I would love to go to the moon. Now you're gonna have like 5 comments, so we never landed on the moon. I was told we don't know the one-way speed of light. We only know the round trip speed. Wait, what? No, actually, the round way you don't have a way to know. I think it's exactly the opposite. You even in principle you cannot measure the way back. Veritasium did a video about this. You can only know one way because you start here and you register here, and then you have devices that can measure the speed. But if you go back, literally the thing already moved a little bit, because the universe is always moving, everything is always moving. So then the second you did that, the light is already coming back to somewhere else, and because the speed of light is also the speed of time, technically speed of causation, then you actually are already in a different time cone in that point. Oh, Alabama. Oh, dude, that's amazing. I can also see Brendan. I've been with Brendan in Vegas recently. Nobody in the chat cares about that. PT2, is it possible that we have free will in one direction and determinism in the other? It's an interesting way of phrasing it. Free will in one direction and determinism in the other. I feel like it's more poetic than functional, but let me think about this. What could it possibly mean? It might be one of these moments where the universe kind of threw a bone here. It's possible that we have free will in one direction and determinism in the other. Gotta think about this. That is interesting. End of September. Nice. That is nice. Where does the New Deal so above is below? I agree with that. Yeah, so I don't know if you recently joined, Brian, but you have a lot of interesting ideas around this stuff. The question at hand is, what is your philosophical position, and does it play a major role in your life, or is it more like entertainment? I think I know the answer in your case to some extent, but if you want, I would love if you share with the chat. Did you talk about Neuralink being able to record pizza topping strips? I was talking about it potentially being able. We can utilize advanced versions of Neuralink to record directly from the cortex, and then when we see the code, we can actually run it through analysis, which at the moment seems impossible because there's so much going on. But if you have a recording that goes from your eyes into some kind of a device, and then AI starts analyzing the code that we see, now you have something very substantial. Great topic. I'm driving on a road trip, so it's hard to answer in detail. Well, so what if you're driving? Give us the answer to life, the universe, and everything in one comment. Go. What about having instruments to see the code directly? That's what I mean. Like the only instrument to see the code direct. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, for that, we're going to have to discover what continuum along which we're seeing this code, and then try and build some kind of a device that can see that better. But something tells me that it would be along the lines of where in consciousness we're looking, which would have to be something very futuristic, but maybe not. I'd say spiritual has become more important than philosophical. Certainly entertainment is the least important. Cool, solid. Spiritual is the most important because it leads us to a better life. Where's the road trip to, by the way? Alabama? No. Is this supposed to be Florida? What is FLA? Flaw. I don't know what that means. Oh, cool. Okay. I thought just FL. Florida. That's my it's my spectrum in something. I don't know what it is, but I'm at home, just in LA. Kelsey kissing the dogs over there. It just became a personal conversation. So, Nutty Professor. No, not even. See, my brain is like gone. Nutty Professor. This is awesome. This is my favorite part of my brain when it gets tired and things just look at something else. Chevy Dog 123. So,
We should ask your chat what we should name Richard.
our new puppy, we decided to name him Richard Feynman, but we didn't decide if it should be either. Wait, we'll put him in front of TikTok. Is this Richard Feynman or Finn or Cosmo? Which one? Because Richard Feynman can also be Finn, technically, I guess. Hey, Richard Feynman. This is a great trick to get sympathy from the chat. Okay. What is the difference between simulation and a construct? Is the difference important? Simulation specifically refers to a computational system, so it would abide by computational rules. Construct can be construct of anything. So you can say that the simulation has a construct, but it would abide by computational rules, i.e., Turing, a quantum Turing machine, essentially. Finn, Richard Feynman. I love Richard Feynman, man. He does look like a Finn, though, doesn't he? He does look like a Finn. Damn it. But I love Richard Feynman. Also, every person I'm telling that his name is Richard Feynman, they're dying laughing, which is a great sign. I mean, that's awesome. I just don't know if we're going to be able to, always call him Richard Feynman. But I'm committed. He got his shots. Yeah, got his shots yesterday. Good question, Val. So is there a value association associated between those two terms? And are those values association different? Only in the sense that construct refers to any structure that has regularities. I think it's a broader term. Finn is his nickname. That's what we thought. Okay, I think we solved. Even though I'm attached to Cosmo at this point, because Cosmo is like really, I don't know, there's something whimsical about it. Just checked. Veritasium says we only know the round trip speed of light. I'm gonna double check again, but I also kind of have it visually. Oh, wait. I think you're right. That you can only know back because in one direction. Wait, but isn't it the case? I'm going to rewatch the video. But isn't the case that when you shoot it in one direction and then you pick it up, so it already moved a little bit, right? So if it already moved, but it's not a roundabout, well, I'm going to rewatch it. Cosmo Kramer. That's taking the dog to a different direction. I like the direction of Richard Feynman. Not from planet Earth. Cosmo is ethereal. I know. It's so nice. Thanks for the correction, by the way, Nurse. I'm gonna double check it because I should refresh this in my memory. I remember that it has something to do with the speed of causation and moving, but from what I remember in the presentation that he gave is basically when you shoot it up and then by the time it comes back. Anyways, I gotta rewatch it, but thank you for that. I asked that question because the simulation does not imply absolution within the paradigm described. Try shooting a laser at mirror, possibly. Yeah, just gotta be careful because it's gonna come back to your eye, right? You can't really it. Most of it bounces back. Wait, I asked the question because to me, simulation does not imply absolution. What do you mean by absolution? I'm not sure what you mean by that. The speed of light also changes. Well, not according to physics. But according to physics is the one thing that is not changing. Right. All that is a perfect system. Well, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily like implied in any of it. The perfect system is the system. It's like everything that exists. Because clearly it exists, right? Brian, under what circumstances light changes speed? I mean, when it goes to a medium, but it's not actually changing the speed. It's a way of describing it, but the speed of light remains the same. Simulation implies imperfection to me. And please argue with me. And please, I'm just wait. You want me to argue with you? I'm just referring to terminology here. I'm not challenging you. Oh, please don't argue with me. Okay. Yeah. No, everything is always in good spirit. Chevy Dog 123. Implies perfection to me, and please argue with me. So I guess it would. Yeah, I understand, and I appreciate the terminology point. However, I think that the deeper point is that the connotation the word simulation has, because of either the movie The Matrix or just how people think of it, because we use simulations to simulate fake environments, right? Because we assume that this world is the real world, and then we simulate something so it's one level beneath us, so it's like not real. So we associate simulation with either not perfect or not real. We assume that simulation equals not real, where in reality, simulation just means computationally rendered environment. And if the world in its entirety is computational, or closer to what it really is it abides by what we call computation rules before it abides by physical rules, that means the world is ultimately computational. So in that sense, we basically stumbled upon the function of computation versus making up computation. Like we discovered computation, right? So we discovered a deeper principle of reality, so to speak, when we discovered computers. So when you have that image in mind, you realize that what simulation means is just a layer of reality, just one layer of the computational structure, the computational matrix. It's all it means. It doesn't mean fake, because as long as there's conscious creatures experiencing inside of any layer, that is real to these creatures. By the way, even if it was just a computer program, even in the oldest sense, and this is why I saw today Keanu Reeves talking about it. Actually, there's a clip that was running around. There was an interview with him in which they just shot The Matrix, and he was visiting. Forget he said who he was visiting, but there was some kid sitting there, and the kid didn't see The Matrix. I don't even remember if it was a girl or a boy in the story. But he basically explained, the kid didn't know what it was, so Keanu Reeves explained what the story is about, and then he said it's all about finding out if it's real or not. And then the kid said, "Who cares?" And Keanu Reeves thought it was really cool, and I think it's really cool because that kid is really smart. Because in reality, it actually would not matter if it's real or not real. All that matters is what you're experiencing in the moment. So obviously, you're not going to have a movie without it, but Cypher was on it all along. It doesn't matter. Like, actually, if you think about it, under the circumstances that they found themselves in, the machines were actually very ethical. They created the perfect environment, and they tried really hard to cater to what people actually wanted the environment to be. So that is the most ethical thing you can do. They don't know any better. They just live their lives. They have free choices in their lives and everything else. It doesn't matter if it's inside of another layer of another layer of another layer. Who cares? What you're experiencing is what's real. But I digress. Back to computation. If the world is computational, which we have many reasons to believe that it is, not even under the rubric of what I'm claiming to have found, but just in general, from physics and information physics, then simulation would just mean one layer of reality. And by definition, all the layers, I guess you can call them imperfect, because the perfect system actually does not exist, even in principle. Because if you think about it, perfect means it has the perfect version of what it is, right? So now, for example, a perfect sphere, which is a geometrical shape, means that every single point in the sphere is exactly opposed to the point right in front of it. It's a perfect sphere because that's how we define a sphere, right? That's why it doesn't exist. the perfect object or the perfect ultimate reality would have to, by necessity, mean that it is the perfect everything, which means it would contain all the opposites of itself. So it would cancel itself out entirely, which would mean it does not occur because nothing is happening. It just cancels out, right? All the spatial and temporal dimensions just cancel out. So, in order for anything to happen at all, or to seem to happen, you have to have at least one thing missing. So, it has to be at least a little bit imperfect to even happen, right? And this goes both in terms of symmetry and both in terms of physical processes, everything. So, think of it like that game, with the numbers where you have one number missing and you have to solve the puzzle by putting the numbers in order. But you have to have one number missing, otherwise you can't move anything. So it's the same thing. So by definition, you cannot have a perfect thing because it would not occur. It would not be happening. And in fact, one of the visions that I saw is that essentially God knows everything there is, including that, there's nothing outside of it. The one thing God does not know is why. It's the only thing. It's the one piece that is missing from being perfect. So God is almost perfect. What is standing between God and being perfect is that knowledge of why, right? And essentially, the multiverse, existence itself, is God asking the question, and it is the answer collecting itself. And every time there's any instance in reality that figures out portion of the why, it becomes part of God, part of the ultimate system. And ultimately, when there's going to be the final piece that delivers the final piece of the puzzle, which delivers the why, in that instance, God will become perfect and therefore not only cease to exist, but cease to have ever been existed. So it will retroactively cancel everything that ever happened. Try that for a mindfuck. All that is a perfect system. Simulation implies imperfection to me. Please argue with me. You saw that? Somebody said, oh boy. Yeah, that's what I said. 1 second. Let's see. Devaluing. Wait. I think Rupert Sheldrake was the one who wrote about the changing speed of light. I don't remember him ever saying that, brother. Maybe I'm wrong, but Rupert Sheldrake came up with what is it? The morphic field, which essentially means that there's this tapestry that registers in the universe everything that happens, and then when something happens here, then the universe knows it happened, and then it becomes possible in more places. But I don't remember him talking about changing speed of light. At least in classical physics or even in quantum physics, the speed of light is the one constant that it cannot be changed. And not only cannot be changed, everything else bows to it. So in other words, when something else changes, if you're trying to change something about this, if you're trying to change something about the speed of, if you're trying to change something about the speed of light, you are actually changing everything around it but it. In other words, if something happens trying to happen faster than light can travel from that point to that point, everything else will change to match that speed. So either physical things will shrink or there will be actual time dilation, but light will maintain its speed for all observers. Wait. Some people who are new to this associate that devaluation. Official is one of them, yes. But what will the boomers say? Cypher wanted that fake steak. Fake steak is good as anything. It's not fake, it's just computationally created. Cypher did. I agree with you. I just feel like the term should change because it works against give an explanation to people who have no idea. But it's the closest term. Again, I think simulacrum maybe is closer. Thank you, Chevy Dog 123. The oh boy makes me laugh, Patricia. I mentioned your righteous Roomba today. It was great. I think everything is God, and that includes us. I don't disagree with that. But isn't existence by definition not able to never not exist? That's the mind fuck. That's why it cannot be perfect. Scroll up to my comment. He believes laws to be habitual and not fixed. Yeah, no, totally. Chillax. Yeah, I think that Wolfram's model is the closest, which is that you have a rule by which it's the graph that describes how all the possible rules give rise to one another, essentially. The effect on my daily life is profound. Wait, somebody says something on YouTube. Let's see. I believe we exist outside of space time. We choose to come here and to learn, experience, or overcome specific limits. Since we exist out of time, every thought and action is viewable. Surprisingly, this makes some sense to me. The effect on my daily life is profound. Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Unit, hey Dan, has your lady friend seen the code? My fiance, yes, she has seen the code. It took her a while. It took her a while. I'm gonna call her my lady friend today. She's like, yeah, she saw the code. It took her a while. It was a painful 5 months because I was telling her about all this stuff, and I was telling her I'm talking to aliens. She didn't leave me, which says a lot. And then she tried to look at the laser and couldn't see it. So imagine she was like, okay. And she just basically looked at me kind of like, hi, man. I mean, I love you, but you're nuts. And eventually when she saw it, it was a big relief. That's a Jedi mind fuck. Interesting. Yeah. Wait. No Rupert Sheldrake. Wait. What? No Rupert Sheldrake. Did he pass away? I hope not. How long ago did you first see the code? First time I think 3.5 years ago, something like that, or maybe 4. What if the aliens told you? 1 second. What held her back? What was the fix so they could see it? I have no idea. This is the $1,000,000 question. Some people, it just takes them a while to see it. I have no idea why. Oh my God, it drives me crazy. Some people just like, they stare at it and they're like, for 2 hours, they can't see it. And I'm like, dude, what is happening? And then after 2 hours, they're just like, oh, I see it. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I'm like, what happened? They're like, I don't know. All of a sudden. So like some people see it right away. Most people see it after like 5 minutes. But some people just takes them a while. I have no idea. I thought about everything: age difference, logical blindness, difference in the way that people perceive highlights. Well, she's saying that her case was she couldn't consume enough molecules. She needed actually more. So kind of actually writing the space properly and being coherent is also a problem. But I don't know. I have no idea, and I wish I would have an answer, and I'm sure that eventually I will. One of the aliens told me. Well, I spoke about it, some of it today. A lot of the stuff that I'm telling you is actually visions that I'm seeing in the space, by the way. AI nurse. I think our universe was born from black hole. This is our universe, but I think there's infinite universes. Yeah. So, Funkworm, when I'm talking about reality, I mean all of it. I mean all the universes. So everything that exists and even potentially can exist. That's what I mean by reality, not just our universe. Does it come into focus more for them as they look or just appear out of thin air? Don't know. I just saw it right away, so I don't have a good reference. I wish I could comment on this. And then also, it does become more coherent over time. It's almost like your brain learns how to look at it, and it's a one-way street. The second you see it, you can't unsee it, and it becomes more and more and more clear every time you do it. But that question is a pain point for me, because every time I'm like, oh, dude, it's hard for me to be in the room sometimes. Do you think it's just fractals of black holes? Wait, fractals of black holes, that's the layers? Black holes within black holes? Very possible, yeah. Actually, like, hello, Kelly. I actually like functional DNA. What is functional DNA? So yeah, it's like a infinite fractal, and black holes basically the second you go, it's essentially based on something is called the wow, my brain is like crazy today. I can't recall anything. What's the word I'm looking for? It's by Leonard Susskind. The come on, somebody help me out here. Not anthropic principle. I'm spacing on it right now. But anyways, it's theory by Leonard Susskind, and it basically states that everything in a three-dimensional space is a projection from a two-dimensional sphere. So all of our universe is a projection from the surface of the universe. All the information is already contained on a two-dimensional surface, and then projected inwards. And essentially, that tells you that it kind of makes sense of the idea that every black hole, the second you fall into it, when you go over a certain distance from the event horizon inwards, the vectors flip, and then because it looks like because you're spaghettified, right, according to the theory, and then you cannot distinguish between being pulled towards the center into an infinite space and the horizon receding from you into infinity, which is the same that what we're seeing in the universe. So in that sense, it makes sense to say that every black hole contains another universe that is like a child of the universe in which it was born. Sheldrake has a famous band TED Talk. Then he wrote Science Delusion. Famous band TED Talk. Can you find that band TED Talk? Also, what could he have possibly said that banned him from TED Talk? That's so interesting. Projection theory, right? No, not the projection theory. It's here, I'll tell you. It's like a super simple term. It's why my brain is just fried for some reason. Susskind theory. It's called. Here we go. Well, it says string theory, but he mostly worked in holographic principle. That's what it was. Speed of light changes from 1927 to 1945. Then they stopped measuring it. Just made it. Oh, I remember that. It's flimsy, man. It's flimsy. I mean, it's super flimsy. Also, the whole idea that there's a conspiracy at the center of science is flimsy all by itself. But I know you love that stuff. Me and Brian one time argued all night about it. That was amazing. That's why I fell in love with him. I love you, man. Let me guess. You loved Terrence Howard, right? Three Peak Films. How are you? Let's see. That's a GIF. Love you too, but not my argument. It's Rupert. Well, I'll take it with Rupert then. I'm doing good. Good to have you here. I actually, you know that I emailed Rupert when I just started this thing. Before I even put out my videos, I emailed Rupert, and he was kind enough to respond, actually. And because of Terrence, he's also was kind of like actually in the movie that I'm writing about Terrence. The opening scene is Rupert meeting Terrence. There's a famous story that Rupert is telling, in which somebody basically told him about Terrence, and then he was like, "You got to go meet this guy. I organized everything. This is a true story." And then Terrence McKenna, right? And then he gave him a cassette and a Walkman, and he was like, "Just listen to this on the bus while you on the way to meet him." And then on the bus, and this is the opening scene, you basically see kind of like close-ups of like the Walkman and Terrence talking and all that stuff. And then he's like listening to it, and then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, I feel like Joey in Friends when he's like, and then a raccoon came and he said, because my brain is already fried. Anyways, so he gets off the bus and he's in the middle of nowhere, and there's just this dirt road, and an old Cadillac just pulls up to him, and a window rolls down, and then Terrence pops out with his aviator sunglasses, and he goes, "Mr. Sheldrake, I presume." And he gets in the car. And this is how the movie starts. But like, it's such a beautiful scene, because he said that when he was listening to it on the bus, he was like, "I've never heard anything like this. This is crazy." So, anyways, this is a story that Sheldrick tells, and I loved that story. And I said, okay, we have to open the movie with that. All right, guys. I think, well, I see 111 and 11. So I think it's a good sign. We can slowly adjourn. If you guys have a few more questions, I'm down to hang out for just a little bit more. But then I think we'll do another 6 minutes to make it a round number. Anything else we forgot to talk about aside from literally everything? I don't even know what we're gonna do tomorrow. I mean, I think we're done. I think that was it. but yeah, I love you all. Thank you so much for joining, guys. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Tomorrow is gonna be a new everything, a new world. I came in the end. Oh yeah. So yeah, I know I'm kind of doing like thank you for coming, Patricia, and you're one of my regulars. The thing is, have a good night, Stephanie Moore. The thing is that I do change the hours a little bit because I'm still trying to dial in my daily schedule with this, because daily it's not always very easy to stream. But I think it's going to be, I'm going to try, and during the week, I'm going to try and land at 4 p.m. or 4:30 p.m. Sorry, anytime between 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going to try and stay within that window. And eventually I'm going to close in on a particular time. And on weekends, it's probably going to be a little later because I take time for myself. So maybe 7 p.m. Pacific time or 8 p.m. Pacific time. But those are the times. And eventually I promise I'll hone in on a particular time. Topic for tomorrow. I just come up with it like a few minutes before. I should probably do a bit of work at this. So I don't know. But if you guys have topics for tomorrow, I would love to hear it. Usually it's something that I saw during the day and kind of caught my attention. So we'll find out tomorrow. Today we talked about everything. Tomorrow we'll specify. We'll start going down the list by alphabetical order. Something with A. Apples? All right, everybody. Much love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Much love, YouTube. Thank you.